Our exclusive guest of today's news hour is the U.S. Ambassador to the United States, Lynne Tracy. Madam Ambassador, thank you for giving us your time and sharing with us your thoughts. Let me start with asking you, first of all, thank you for this opportunity, really. And what is your take on the situation related to coronavirus spread in Armenia? As we know, the health crisis is becoming more serious. We already passed 10,000 threshold. Daily numbers of infected people increased almost tenfold if you compare to previous months. And what is your take on this situation?
Well, thank you, Harry, and it's good to be back with you again and a chance to talk to your viewers. You know, like Armenians here at the embassy, we're watching the developments, the news. We're of course, trying to maintain the measures that the government is asking for from all of us. And I certainly want to wish the Prime Minister and his family a very speedy recovery. I think, you know, the fact that he was open about his own situation really underscores, you know, just how this virus can reach any of us. And so the importance that he is emphasizing of maintaining social distance, wearing a mask in public places, and good hygienic practices like washing hands. Those are things that all of us can do that I think can help turn around the situation we're seeing right now. Because obviously these high numbers that we are seeing now are of concern, but it's really the effort of all of us, a unified effort that I think is going to make a difference in fighting COVID. And I'm also very happy to say that the United States has been doing its best to contribute and assist the government. We have obtained $5.4 million of new assistance money that's going in a number of directions to help the government. And we're also redirecting some of our existing money to help small and medium businesses. So I have still some optimism that we can recover and be in a better place, but it's going to take a lot of work, I think, from everybody.
Madam Ambassador, the Armenian government decided to reopen economy, resume economic activities, meanwhile tighten some public safety measures, but then a sudden spike happened, and now they're trying to tighten again by introducing new measures, such as wearing masks everywhere, wherever you go, including outside, inside. What's your take on that decision? Do you think that they reopened the economy too early? Was it timely, or you think that they just, there was, what's your take on it?
Well, I think what you're seeing in Armenia, and you know, I appreciate how open the Prime Minister has been. I think this is a real hallmark of good leadership in a crisis, communication. If the public loses trust because there's a sense of hiding information, we're in big trouble. And the Prime Minister has been talking about some of the issues that he's been trying to balance, the issues of trying to balance protecting public health while also, you know, paying attention to the fundamentals of the economy. It's a tough balance to strike. I think we're seeing that we're continuing to work through that. And this is something we're facing in the United States as well, in many places around the world. It's not unique to Armenia. I go back to what I said a moment ago, which I think the thing that we can do now, looking ahead, is to for all of us to do our best to implement these measures that the government is asking of each citizen.
Madam Ambassador, what would be your advice if they ask you what we should do? You know, the situation is worsening now, day by day. Do you have something to tell them? And I'm sure you're communicating with them, but please share with our viewers as well, if you can, please.
No, I think that I would say that I see the government focusing on some key questions and communicating about those key questions to the public. Obviously, we're seeing a step up in enforcement with respect to some of these measures, like wearing masks in public. But I would also note there's not a police officer for every single individual in Armenia. So it really does require some responsibility on the part of each citizen, some self-discipline. That's not easy. I myself have been out a bit, and you know, we have this tendency as human beings, we want to congregate together, and so it takes practice. But I think the public messaging is very important. The other area that I think the government is focusing on is the capacity in hospitals and trying to make sure that it preserves the capacity in the hospitals for the most severe cases. I think that's a very important focus, and I'm glad to see that the government is paying attention to that. So, you know, these are, again, but at the end of the day, I think there's a lot within the power of individuals to impact this situation in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. Madam Ambassador, we know that there is a shortage of ICUs, intensive care units now, and I assume also they don't have enough ventilators, and we know that the U.S. is producing a lot of them, and they have, President was also telling the public that the U.S. has a lot of ventilators that they're helping even foreign countries. Do we have any indication that Armenia also might get some of it, or?
Well, Harry, the new money that we have so far, and some of that new money has come from what we call global health funds. This has gone to help support the work of laboratories in Armenia that are managing the coronavirus cases. It is also providing assistance to help with the most severe cases of the pandemic. And we are continuing to advocate for assistance. I can't speculate right now whether ventilators or other equipment will be a part of the future assistance, but we are continuing to talk to the government about the needs that they have, and we're looking at what we have within the U.S. capacity to help.
And Madam Ambassador, there are a lot of Armenians stuck in the U.S. They were like on holidays. They were visiting their relatives. Then some of them came back, but I think there are some people that they're not able to come back. Is there any? Is U.S. government helping those Armenians? Are you in contact with U.S. consulate in Los Angeles? Are you working with them? What is the mechanics here, if you can share with us, please?
Well, I'm very happy to say that we have been working very closely with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the State Department in Washington has been working very closely with the Armenian embassy and its consulates. We were able, working together, to bring back a group of our young high school students, Armenian students who were in the United States for a year-long exchange program that unfortunately got cut short. We've also been able to assist with some other Armenian citizens who wanted to come back when we saw some flight opportunities to coordinate that. But I would tell your viewers, and especially if they have relatives right now in the United States, stay in touch with the Armenian embassy and consulates, keep them aware of their situations. Obviously, right now, there are very, very limited flights coming and going from Armenia, which makes it tough for people to come back now. But I think the best thing they can do for themselves, if they're still in the United States waiting for an opportunity, is to work through the Armenian embassy. And then when we see opportunities with flights, we might be able to help coordinate on getting more people back.
Madam Ambassador, also U.S. Embassy was helping U.S. American Armenians to repatriate back to the United States. Is that project still intact, or there were a couple of flights to Doha and then from there to California? What's the situation with that?
Well, I'm very happy to say we did have a repatriation flight take place in May that helped get out nearly 20 American citizens. And then there were and are still, as I said, some very limited number of flights that we have helped American citizens take advantage of to depart. But our sense right now is that most of the people who've wanted to leave have taken advantage of the opportunities. Some people are choosing to remain here, but we are staying in touch with our citizens. They know that we are looking at these issues, and so as we can continue to assist them if they choose now to leave, we're ready to do that.
Very interesting. And now let's talk about the Freedom House latest report. It's a little bit the subject about human rights and other stuff related to that issue. In an unusual move, we saw for the first time embassy posting about Armenian democracy record referring to the Freedom House latest report. Was there any urgency to do that? Would you please comment on that? What was the pretext, or there was some reason, or it was just happy to share?
I think it was happy to share. I mean, I think we saw this as, you know, a good news story that this Freedom House report that focuses on nations that are in transition, acknowledged and demonstrated that Armenia had had an historic increase in improvement in its scorecard, so to speak. And I think that's not to say that there aren't still areas for work. I think the government acknowledges that. Certainly, if you look at the report, I think there's a balance. There's praise, and then there's areas that are discussed where work needs to be done. But you know, we like to highlight good progress like that when we see it from a respected international organization like Freedom House.
Yeah, Madam Ambassador, what about the latest events in the Parliament? There was some heated debate, and it turned out to be a little bit, you know, feisty, and some fist fighting happened there. What's your take on that? Is this a painful growth of democracy, like a little child is growing? What is it? What's your take on that? Or it was serious matter?
Well, I think that, you know, you expect to see in a healthy democracy vigorous debate, and debate can even get heated sometimes. But words should never be met with violence. Violence is just really almost never the answer, and certainly not when we're having a debate of ideas. And so I certainly hope moving forward that what we see is that constructive civil discourse that makes it easier for people to not just speak, but to actually listen to each other, listen to their ideas. We have a parliament that has very intelligent, talented people in all three parties. And so I think that there's no reason for violence. People can speak together in a constructive way that sets an example also for young people as they, look to their government for leadership.
But the opposition members, they thought that, there was no condemnation or it wasn't enough. And they even think that Prime Minister encourages further, trouble there in the parliament. But we know that he condemned the violence. And he said that was my first and biggest failure after the revolution. What's your take on that? Do you think that condemnation was enough, or?
Well, I think it is very important to speak out and to speak out unequivocally in condemning violence in these kinds of circumstances. And as I said, violence is really almost never the answer, and certainly not in the kind of circumstances that we saw in Parliament. So hopefully, going forward, we're going to see a good, constructive debate, because that's what Armenia needs right now. I think we need leaders working together, talking together constructively to solve the problems that the country is facing.
Yeah. Now let's talk about Nagorno-Karabakh. Madam Ambassador, we didn't have a chance to talk about it. Now, one of the top U.S. diplomats, Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for European Eurasian Affairs, George Kent, described Sergei Lavrov's recent statement on Karabakh issue as not helpful. And your comments on that and the U.S. engagement in Nagorno-Karabakh peace process, is there any new development there, or what is this statement tells us?
Well, Harry, I would suggest going back and actually looking at my colleague George Kent's statement in context, because his statement on unhelpful characterizing Minister Lavrov's words as unhelpful, I think was actually focused on some other statements related to Ukraine and other issues. But coming back to, I think, the real point for us, and certainly, to the other part of your question, we remain very engaged as a co-chair of the Minsk Group. We are committed to mediating a peaceful and lasting settlement of the conflict. This is fundamental. Whenever I'm asked about this is my answer, because, and it hasn't changed. I think this is one of these enduring places of U.S. policy. So we remain very active in trying to support a peaceful settlement.
Madam Ambassador, lately the UK-based website Open Democracy did an investigative report and found that US-funded website spreads COVID misinformation in Armenia. Did you, your own investigation, what's happening here? Did you have an idea that they're spreading this kind of information? Or what was?
Well, Harry, I'm glad you asked about this. And let me, first of all, say we are very opposed to disinformation that confuses the public, that is unhelpful, particularly in a situation like a pandemic. But if you don't mind, I'd like to spend a couple more minutes on this, because I feel like some of the press coverage that we've seen has generated more heat than light on the circumstances. The website in question was part of a larger grant, a Democracy Commission grant, and the aim of the proposal was to focus on reducing corruption in healthcare. The website was one component of a number of components to the proposal that was awarded about a year ago. And it was only very recently, in early May, when some of these third-party posts, so by third-party posts, I mean not the actual managers of the website, but people who were coming to the website and posting content. We learned that there was some posting of content that was very problematic. We contacted the grantee and asked for those posts to be taken down. The grantee, a local NGO, felt that this was an issue of free speech. We felt differently. We felt that free speech has to be balanced, though, also with responsible management of a website. And so as a result, the grant was ending at the end of May, but we did have a request for an extension. And we decided on the basis of seeing these issues to not approve an extension that had been requested by the local NGO. I just want to, also emphasize that this, as I said, was a Democracy Commission grant. In almost 20 years of investing over $8 million in over 500 grants that help grassroots democracy activists with great ideas. I think we've been very, very successful. But we've certainly learned a few things from this this particular episode. We're tightening up some procedures, and I look forward to having more successful Democracy Commission grants, because what we really want to do is to help support Armenia's democracy, promote healthy debate, but responsible debate as well.
Madam Ambassador, I think it will be helpful also to involve in this process also like prominent journalists or people, independent-minded people who are really active members of the civic society. It was during this selection process. I don't know how it happens, but I think people would be really happy to help U.S. Embassy in this process. If you have, I think they're ready to help. But that's a side comment. And also, but very interesting that we didn't know that actually you're going to end this grant, and because there were a lot of criticism of this website, although there was a third-party content, but it was very, very troubling misinformation. I mean, people, they were all posting articles like disproving existence of the virus itself, spreading all kinds of conspiracy about Bill Gates and other stuff. And Madam Ambassador, now let's talk about the United States. The whole world is now following the events in the United States, and the nationwide protest caught also world's attention. The murder of unarmed black man, George Floyd, by a white policeman sparked protests, which in certain cases turned into violence, looting. Can you please put it into context for us? There are a lot of misinformation about these events. Some totalitarian governments, regimes around in our region criticizing U.S. government as being brutal, undemocratic, racist, but certainly this is not the case. Please, your analysis.
Well, first of all, I think what you've described, we've been watching here as well. The killing of George Floyd was a shocking event, a tragic event that has been the source of a lot of pain and anguish across the United States. That's been represented in the many peaceful protests that people have been seeing. And I think part of what people have been seeing is that there is a need for parts of the communities in the United States to be heard. That's what those demonstrations are about. And leaders need to listen. Yeah. And protesting is patriotic. Peaceful protesting is patriotic. And it can be carried out in a manner that is absolutely consistent with law and order. And in many communities, we saw where police were talking to protesters, were engaging with them in a very helpful way. I think that's the ideal, and I really, want to spotlight that as the positive example that we need to see more of. Obviously, as you said, there was violence as well. There were people who took advantage of this horrific moment for their own agendas, looting and other activities of that sort that were not peaceful in nature. But I think the United States is a place that continues to work at holding itself accountable. You mentioned the criticisms of other places. I don't think that most Americans claim that the United States is a perfect place, but it is a place where we have systems that we try to use to hold ourselves accountable, to continue to improve and strive for that more perfect union. And that's what I think these peaceful protests are hopefully going to help us do.
Very interesting. Madam Ambassador, thank you so much for your help to understand all these things, and thank you for your thoughts about Armenia, about pandemic, and thank you very much. I hope that we will talk in near future about these matters again.
Thank you, Harry. It's been good to be with you today.
Thank you.